Have you discovered Folsom and then you found El Dorado Hills and you started comparing the two, but then maybe you got to thinking, I want to be someplace a little more rural or a little less crowded? So you found Placerville, and now you're wondering, well, what's the difference between Folsom and Placerville, and what's Placerville all about anyway, and how the heck do I figure out which one's right for my family? Well, in this video, I'm going to help you answer that question. When it comes time to try to nail down which community is right for you and your family, it can be really challenging. It's one of the reasons that these one community versus the other community videos are so popular on my channel, because it helps you have some criteria to make those decisions. Now, when you hop on a call with me to figure out where to land in El Dorado County, I might ask you some qualifying questions like, how far of a drive do you want to be from a grocery store or a hospital or your kids' school? Do you want to be around oak trees or pine trees, above snow line or below snow line, Beatles or Rolling Stones, window or aisle? You know, the important stuff. When it comes to choosing between Folsom and Placerville, you're gonna have to do a little bit of a deeper dive, and that's what today's video is for. I'm gonna run you through 8 critical criteria to help you evaluate each community and decide which one's right for your family. So let's get stuck right into Folsom versus Placerville. If you've been watching a while, welcome back. And if you're new here, you might be wondering who I am and why you should listen to me. And that's a fair question. My name is Rich Curtis, and I'm with eXp Realty, and I've been selling homes here in El Dorado County for nearly 20 years, in markets ranging from the Great Recession to the COVID market insanity and everything in between. So when it comes to El Dorado County real estate, I've got you covered. So right off the bat, where are these two communities and what are they like? Well, these two communities are actually in very different locations. Folsom is right at the edge of the Central Valley, right on the El Dorado County and Sacramento County lines. It's basically the end of the flats before you start climbing the hills up to Tahoe. So Folsom is a mostly flat town, and it is in Sacramento County. Now, Placerville is pretty far up the hill. It's about a 35-minute drive from Folsom, and it's at about 2,000 foot elevation on the western slope of the Sierras. It's a little mountain town, so it's very hilly terrain, and it's in El Dorado County. Now, when it comes to what they're like, the two towns have very different vibes. They're both amazing places to live and amazing places to raise a family. In fact, Folsom gets voted one of the best places in California to raise a family all the time. And if you're interested in that, I'll link at the end to a video all about Folsom. But Folsom in general is going to be more strip mall shopping, big box retail, chain restaurants, that sort of experience. So if you're coming from, San Jose in the Bay Area, or if you're coming from LA somewhere, Folsom's gonna feel a lot like home, a lot like where you're coming from. It's suburban living. Now, Placerville, on the other hand, is rural living. Placerville only has about 11,000 people versus Folsom has 85,000 people. That's a big difference. It's a small town, has a small downtown. Most of your shopping is in the old mom and pop shops kind of thing. So if you're the kind of person that wants to go out at night, have a nightlife, go to restaurants, shop at more boutique style shopping, and live in more resort style fancy living, then Folsom might be more for you. Now, if you're the type of person who wants to walk into the oldest hardware store west of the Mississippi and have an old guy help you find the exact perfect nut and bolt for every project you ever have, or walk into an old bookstore that, although tiny, feels cavernous, and after you've made 2 or 3 turns, you're not sure you're ever gonna find your way out, but you're also not sure if you wanna find your way out, then Placerville might be for you. These are two very different communities, but they both have a lot to offer your family, so let's get into the specifics right now. The first criteria for evaluating any community is the general vibe of the place. How does it feel and what's it like to live there? Now, in general, Folsom is gonna feel a little bit more fast-paced. There's gonna be a little bit more going on, and people are gonna be rushing around a little more from place to place getting things done. Placerville, being a more rural place to live, is gonna be a little bit slower pace of life. Not that people aren't making things happen here, you can just feel the difference in the two communities in terms of how fast life is moving. Of course, your proximity to things has an effect on the way a community feels. Folsom, being down at the base of the foothills on the flats, is much, much closer to the big city, to Sacramento, and to all of the different shopping malls, all of the different theaters, all of those kinds of things that you can access in big cities. Sacramento, of course, is the capital of California, and there's a lot going on there. So if you want to be close to all the action, then Folsom is really going to be the place for you. Placerville, on the other hand, being 25 to 35 minutes up the hill from Folsom and 45 to an hour from downtown Sacramento, is just a little further from all of that stuff. If you're going to go access any of that from Placerville, you're kind of going to make a day of it. Now, of course, that's not bad or good, but if you're the kind of person that wants to knock out a bunch of errands back to back to back, and those errands have to be at more of a big box or a chain store type of environment, or maybe you're a 9-to-5 worker and you only have a lunch hour to jam out and get a couple of things done for the day, then Folsom's going to be a much easier environment for that. Now, if you are self-employed or you like to batch all of your errands for the weekends and you want to live in a place with less people and a slower vibe, then Placerville might be the right place for you. The final thing to consider in terms of the feel of each community is that Placerville is a small town. It's the kind of place where everybody knows everybody, and everywhere you go, there's somebody you know. Now, if you're a really hyper-social person, then this is great for you. You'll go to the grocery store, you'll bump into somebody and have a fun conversation and maybe make plans to meet up later. You'll go to the gas station, you'll bump into somebody else. You'll go down to get your car washed, you'll bump into somebody else. It's that kind of town, and that can be really fun for some people. But if you're the kind of person that kind of wants to go about their day without being noticed and doesn't want to have all of those social interactions, then that can be a little exhausting. Now, Folsom, on the other hand, with 85,000 people, even though it is still a small-ish place and there are a lot of people that know each other, it's the kind of place where you can go about your business without really bumping into a lot of people that you know. That's a very different feel and a very different lifestyle. So if you don't have the time in your life, or you don't have the energy in your life to have a conversation every time you go and do something, then Placerville might not be the place for you, and you might prefer Folsom. All right, let's go on to criteria number 2 and talk about the cost of living. Criteria number 2 to evaluate these two communities is home cost. Now, when it comes to cost of living, the biggest line item on most people's budget is your mortgage. So how much a home costs makes a big difference in which community you choose for your family. And there's a big discrepancy here between Folsom and Placerville. In Folsom, the median home price is going to be about $750,000, with the bottom of the market being around $440,000 if you need to get a loan on the property. Of course, if you have a bigger budget, it does go all the way up to multi-million-dollar beautiful luxury homes. But what do you get for that median home price of $750,000 in Folsom? We're going to get a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,100 square foot on a small lot in pretty good shape. Of course, like I said, there are cheaper homes, but do be advised at that bottom of the market $440,000 level, those homes are going to need a lot of work. Now, by comparison, Placerville's median home price, as of the recording of this video, is about $509,000. And the bottom of the market in Placerville is going to be not much different than Folsom, actually, around that $400,000 mark. Anything below that will likely need a cash offer to get it done. So what are you getting for your median home price of $509,000 in Placerville? Well, you're going to be getting more of a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,700 square foot home on about a ½ acre to an acre of land in pretty good shape. So you can see Placerville is going to offer you much cheaper homes on larger lots. Folsom is going to offer you more expensive homes on smaller lots, and that's a big difference for your family. So you'll have to decide which price point works best for your family, but also know that there is a difference in the style of home and style of neighborhood that you're getting at those two different price points. Your Folsom home is going to likely be in a neighborhood with streets and cul-de-sacs and houses close together, and your Placerville home is likely to be on a little bit more land, like I said, a ½ acre to an acre, and have a lot more space and less neighbors around. So you're not just deciding on price point, you're also deciding on how you want to live, which brings us to criteria number 3 for evaluating these two communities, and that's lifestyle. Criteria number 3 is lifestyle. Now, it can be hard to quantify lifestyle. What is it like to live in a place, and how does that appeal to different people? So let me describe a typical day. So in Folsom, you might get up and you can get right out of your garage on your bike and roll right onto a trail and go for a bike ride with the kids or head down to a park. In fact, Folsom was designed around a massive trail system. They have 50 miles of Class 1 hiking, biking, and walking trails. Most of them are even paved and wheelchair accessible. So it's really easy to not have to get in the car and go out and do a little bit of recreation with the kids. Now, differently in Placerville, we have a ton of trails, outdoor wilderness trails, hundreds and hundreds of miles of them. In fact, 75% of the landmass in El Dorado County is protected open space. But it's not right outside your back door like that. You're gonna have to hop in the car and go drive to a trail, and it's gonna be more of a dirt trail and a wilderness experience. So those are two very different experiences. When it comes to shopping, in Placerville, you might go to our quaint little Gold Rush era downtown and shop at some of the unique mom and pop shops. And you could head over to a Walmart or a Target too here in Placerville, but if you need any of the bigger stores, you're gonna have to go down the hill to Folsom. Versus Folsom, you have almost every big box retail, chain store, chain restaurant, and anything else you can ever imagine, all right there at your fingertips in Folsom. So if you're kind of the person that likes to shop at those places frequently, you're gonna have access to that much more easily in Folsom than in Placerville. And if you're the type of person that wants to sit on Main Street and have a nice coffee and shop in the little shops, and you don't mind waiting to the weekend and driving down to Folsom or Sacramento to do some of the bigger shopping missions, then Placerville might be right for you. Now, I alluded earlier to the fact that Folsom is a little bit more of a fast-paced place to live. Now, I grew up in the Bay Area, which is a very fast-paced place to live. And when I moved to El Dorado County and to Placerville, I really enjoyed the slower pace of life here. But Folsom is kind of that in between. It's not nearly as fast-paced as those of you coming from San Francisco or Berkeley or LA might be used to, but it is quite a bit faster than Placerville. Everybody just feels a little bit more like they're on a mission getting things done in Folsom, and in Placerville people feel a little bit more like they're willing to hang out and sit down and have a random chit chat with you that they weren't expecting. So those feelings are very different in terms of your day-to-day life. Now, one other thing when it comes to lifestyle is the driving piece. Like I said, you might have to drive to get to trails in Placerville where you can roll right onto them from your house in Folsom, but this goes for pretty much everything else. If you're gonna go meet up with friends, you're going to be driving. Versus Folsom, you might have other kids right in the neighborhood that your kids can walk or bike to. If you're going to go to soccer practice, you might be driving in both places, but because Placerville is a rural county and our houses are really spread out, you're probably going to be driving a lot farther in Placerville to get your kids to that. You are going to be driving your kid to school a lot because many of our school systems don't have busing in Placerville versus Folsom schools have buses. So you're going to spend a lot more time in the car in Placerville than Folsom. So in general, it's really the difference between suburban and rural living. That's going to be your choice between Folsom and Placerville. Hey, if by the end of this video you still aren't sure if Folsom or Placerville are right for your family, then feel free to reach out to me via the contact information on your screen or in the description down below. I've been selling homes here for nearly 20 years and I've helped hundreds of families just like yours decide where to land in El Dorado and Sacramento counties, and I'm always happy to help. All right, now back to our criteria to decide whether Placerville or Folsom is right for your family. Criteria number 4 in evaluating these two communities against each other is cost of living. Now, of course, we already talked about the cost of homes, but the next biggest line item is your utilities. And there's a big difference here between El Dorado and Sacramento counties, Placerville being in El Dorado County and Folsom being in Sacramento County. And the biggest one is when it comes to electricity. So Placerville is going to be on PG&E, which is relatively expensive power for the state of California. Now, Folsom is on SMUD power, which is nearly half the cost of PG&E, and they don't have the rolling blackouts and all of that business as well. So your electricity is going to cost half in Folsom what it does in Placerville. Now, of course, Placerville is 2,000 feet higher and 10 to 15 degrees cooler in the summer, so you might spend a little less electricity on air conditioning in Placerville than you do in Folsom, but in general, your utility bills are going to be far less in Folsom than they are in Placerville. Now, you do have natural gas in Folsom. It's provided by PG&E, so it's not the cheapest natural gas in the world, but it is far cheaper than propane. So your gas heating costs in Folsom will be more expensive than they are in Placerville. Now, I would say that goods and services in general are going to be slightly more expensive in Folsom. But here's the caveat to that. Most of us who live in Placerville shop down in Folsom a lot anyway. So Folsom, because it's got some higher end shops and those sorts of things, is gonna have slightly higher prices. But when it comes to the day-to-day stuff, we're all going down there to shop at Costco anyway. And the people in Folsom are often coming up here to go into our downtown to buy cute little presents in the downtown stores. So I think when it comes to the cost of your daily goods, the two communities are gonna average out for you because you're gonna be shopping realistically in both no matter where you live. Now, one of the other big components when it comes to cost of living is going to be your home fire insurance, and there is a big difference here. So that's a criteria all on its own that I'll get to later in the video. Make sure to stick around for that one. Now, when it comes to fuel prices, your fuel is going to be mostly about the same price in both communities, although Folsom has Costco, which is one of the cheapest places to get gas, so we always fill up when we're down there. But you are going to just drive a lot more if you live in Placerville. So your monthly cost on fuel is going to be higher living in Placerville than it is in Folsom, because you're going to just live farther away from everything and you're going to just spend a lot more time in the car if you're in Placerville. Hope that gives you a little idea of the difference in the cost of living of the two places, and those costs are really, again, based on that suburban versus rural living. Criteria number 5 to evaluate these two communities is recreation. For me, this is huge. I am an outdoorsman. I love to be outside playing and recreating all the time. So what I have access to and how quickly I can get there to go and play with my family is a big deal for me in deciding where to live. Now, both these communities are really amazing when it comes to recreation. It's just a little bit different kind of recreation. So this is going to come down to what you prefer. So Folsom is going to have a lot more developed recreation opportunities. I mentioned the 50 miles of Class 1 trails that they have all throughout town, linking the neighborhoods and the parks. They're mostly paved trails. So if you want to hop on just any kind of regular towny bike or a road bike and zip around the trails and be able to ride your bike to work, ride your bike to stores, ride your bike to the community parks, Folsom's going to be great for that. It's also going to be great for the kids to go from place to place on the bike trails in a really safe and nice environment where you can let them be a little bit more free to roam. Now, Placerville is going to be a little different when it comes to that. It's going to be much more wilderness recreation. So if you're the type of person that wants to jump on your mountain bike and be on a dirt trail for the day, Placerville is going to be for you. If you're an equestrian and you want to be out horseback riding, Placerville is going to be for you. If you like, side-by-sides, dirt bikes, or off-roading, Placerville's going to be the place for you. Now, both places have amazing water-based recreation. Here again, it's a little bit different. Now, here in the Placerville area, we have the South Fork of the American River, the second most commercially rafted river in the country. It's great for whitewater rafting and kayaking, but it does require a little bit of skill to do that sport unless you're going to pay somebody to take you down. Now, Folsom is going to be much more lake-based and less river-based recreation. So they have two lakes, the huge lake, Folsom Lake, and that's power boating, wakeboarding, and all of that. And they have great beaches there for the kids to play as well. Then you also have smaller Lake Natoma, which, although powerboating is allowed, it has a 5-mile-an-hour speed limit, so you almost never see a powerboat out there. So that lake is great for kayaking, paddleboarding, rowing sculls, little sailboats, that kind of thing. And it's a great, really peaceful place to go and explore a lake without all the powerboats zipping around. Now, we do have a lake up here close to Placerville. It's about 20-25 minutes outside of town with Jenkinson Lake, where you can do the paddleboarding and where you can do the power boating as well. But Folsom is really based around those two lakes, and it's quick and easy to get access to lakefront recreation, and it's all developed parking lots, even in some places concession stands, rentals, places you can rent paddleboards and kayaks and all of that. When you're up here in the Placerville area, you're much more on your own. You're going to have to be self-reliant, have your own equipment, bring your own kayaks and paddleboards, that sort of thing. So when it comes down to recreation, both places are amazing. It just depends on how you like to recreate. If you have very limited time and you're the kind of person that just wants to jump on the bike in the garage and go right now, Folsom is absolutely your jam. And if you're the kind of person that just wants to be in the woods and in the wilderness as often as possible, then Placerville would be the place for you. Criteria number 6 for evaluating these two communities is fire insurance. Now, fire insurance has become an issue statewide in California over the last few decades because of all the fires. So you may run into the same situation I'm talking about in Placerville, even in the Oakland Hills. I was helping a client down there recently, and their fire insurance is just as bad in the Oakland Hills as it is here in Placerville or Pollock Pines. Folsom, on the other hand, is down in the flats and out of the trees and has much more favorable insurance rates. So here in Placerville, your homeowner's insurance is going to be much, much higher. It's not unusual for homes to have to be on the California Fair Plan, which I can explain that in another video. That's a whole other monster to talk about. And it's not unusual for homes to have between $3,000 and $6,000 annual premiums for their homeowners insurance, and sometimes much higher than that, even over $10,000 if it's a really high fire-prone area. Now in Folsom, you're going to have much more normal, reasonable costs that are going to range in the $1,500 to $3,000 range, depending on the size of the home. Now, if you're getting a much bigger luxury home in Folsom, you still may have some expensive insurance, but if you're getting a more average family home, your insurance costs are going to be much, much lower in Folsom than in Placerville. So that's something you have to account for. And the best way to do that is to kind of calculate your full PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance payment for a home you like in both communities. Because of course, the home you like in Folsom is going to cost more, so that's going to make a higher payment. The home you like in Placerville is going to cost less, lower payment. But the insurance is going to be way higher in Placerville and way less in Folsom. So you really got to compare that full payment for both places to decide which one actually comes out to be a better value for you. Now you can do this using an online mortgage calculator and play around with the numbers yourself, and that's also something that I can help you with. So if you're struggling to do that, or you just want someone to run the numbers real quick for you, feel free to reach out to me via the contact information on your screen or in the description down below, and I can help you do that so you can decide which community makes more financial sense for your family. Hey, if you've made it this far and you're getting anything at all out of this video, hit the like button, click subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss another video with crucial information to help you with your move to El Dorado or Sacramento counties, including the many community comparison videos I have coming up over the next few weeks. Criteria number 7 is schools. Now this is a big one for parents in evaluating any communities where your kid's going to go to school. And I don't want to bury the lead here. Both communities have excellent schools. You're going to be fine in either community when it comes to great schools for your kids. In fact, the vast majority of the schools in both places are going to score an 8 out of 10 or above on greatschools.org. Both places also have 2 high schools that serve the communities. You've got Folsom High in Vista del Lago in Folsom, and you have El Dorado High and Union Mine High School up in Placerville. They both have great middle schools and elementary schools as well. Now, Placerville probably doesn't have any new schools coming online anytime soon. That is one difference. Folsom is going to get 1 new high school, 1 new junior high, and 5 new elementary schools in the new Folsom Ranch development south of Highway 50. Now you'd have to buy one of the new homes in those communities to have your kids have access to those schools, but that is a difference. If you were very excited about having a brand new school site for your kids, that is something that actually will be available in Folsom, although we don't have dates on when those schools will be built and opened yet. That also brings up the fact that there's much more new building and access to new homes down in Folsom. We have very little new construction here in Placerville. There is one community right now, Sutter's Ridge, and you can search my channel and see some videos on the plans there. But south of 50 in Folsom, there's going to be 11,000 new homes built, and with those new homes comes new schools. Now, the high schools in Folsom and the high schools up in Placerville have great athletics programs and really great campuses, and you're gonna be fine either place you go. Criteria number 8 is employment, and this is a big one. You gotta eat and you gotta work. Now, for some of you, you're gonna be relocating for a job, so this one's gonna be baked in for you. But if not, it's important to know the differences between what's available in the 2 communities. Now, Placerville being a rural place, there's going to be less jobs available in terms of jobs that are made for you and are hiring right now. We do have a thriving healthcare sector with the hospital here and some outpatient surgery centers between here and Cameron Park. So if you're a healthcare worker, there's probably a lot for you here. We have the El Dorado County buildings here and all of the county jobs here. So if you're a county or a state or a government worker, there's going to be a lot available to you here for that as well. And of course, there's a lot of jobs in education. But beyond that, most people in El Dorado County are going to fall into the realm of entrepreneurship. Now, that is one of the things I love about El Dorado County and Placerville specifically, is there are so many entrepreneurs here. From your general style entrepreneurs who are opening up an auto shop or a tire shop or are an accountant or those sorts of things, or a realtor like myself, all the way to creatives who work in the movie industry. We have a lot of movies that use El Dorado County for shoots and for sets, and so we have a lot of creatives who work in the camera or lighting realm here or sound. We also have a lot of creatives who work in the internet industry here. So there's just a lot of entrepreneurs here. But if you're looking for a job that's not healthcare, that's not government, that's not education and that's not an entrepreneurship, then Folsom might serve you better. Now, Folsom, of course, does have a big, thriving healthcare sector as well. They have a hospital and lots of surgery centers. Healthcare is a big deal in Folsom, so there'll be a lot of healthcare jobs. It's also really close to Roseville and Sacramento, which has a lot of healthcare jobs as well. And in general, that's going to be the theme of Folsom, is even if Folsom itself doesn't have exactly what you need, there's going to be so much more job diversity both in Folsom proper and in the places that it's adjacent to that are a quicker, shorter drive than in Placerville. So if you need a wider range of jobs available to you that are not entrepreneurship, Folsom's going to be much better in that regard. Folsom's also going to have education jobs, and it's also going to have a lot of retail jobs. Now, Placerville has retail jobs, but they're not going to be particularly upwardly mobile because they're going to be more in small mom and pop shops. Whereas Folsom, if you have a retail worker in your family, they're going to have access to all of the retail chains where you can move your way up the ladder, eventually get into management, running your own store, and that sort of thing. Or if you already work at one of those and need to transfer to one, there's probably a location in Folsom, and there probably isn't in Placerville. So that's something to consider. Being so close to the capital as well, just a short drive to downtown Sacramento, you have access to all of the job diversity in Sacramento, including all the government jobs there as well. So if you need a wider job diversity and you're not in entrepreneurship, Folsom is going to work out a lot better for you in that regard. All right, I told you we would do 8 criteria, but I always like to over deliver, and I have one more for you. So bonus criteria, or criteria number 9, is going to be access to new homes. Now, for some people, this is a big deal, and for others not. Some people would prefer an older, charming home that has its quirks, and other people really love the idea of being the first person ever to live in this home. Now, if you're that person, then Folsom far and away is going to be the place for you. Folsom has a ton of development still going on. Of course, Folsom Ranch, south of 50, 11,000 new units over the next 25 years. And there's still even development north of 50 going on in Folsom proper that is going to give you continued access to new homes for a long, long time in Folsom. By contrast, it's harder to do developments and harder to do building here in Placerville. And so there's just very little of that. There is currently, like I said earlier in the video, one Sutter's Ridge new development here that you can look at the units in, but they're building like 35 homes and then they're out of here versus the over 11,000 that are going to be built in Folsom. So if a new home is something you're seeking, you're going to be far better off looking in Folsom than in Placerville. All right, that wraps up our discussion of Placerville versus Folsom. And I hope this video has helped you decide which community might be right for your family. Now, if you'd like to take a deeper dive into each of these communities, or if you've decided on one and want to learn more about that, you can do that by clicking this video right here on the pros and cons of living in Folsom. And if it was Placerville you wanted to learn more about, you can click this video right here on the pros and cons of living in Placerville. And there's also a cost of living video for each of those communities too, so you can go deeper into what it actually costs to live there. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.